Hello, BookTube. I'm Jonathan, and today I am your host for a sci-fi book trivia game. And here's how it's going to work. There are 30 questions, 10 easy questions worth 2 points each, 10 medium questions worth 3 points each, and 10 hard questions worth 5 points each. And here's the twist. I'm going to be playing the game with you guys. I did not create these questions. I did not come up with them. My subscribers on Discord kindly put together some science fiction trivia questions for us, so you get to play along and see if you can beat my score. So, without further ado, let's test our sci-fi knowledge with some easy questions to kick us off. All right, our first question, question number 1 is: which film was Philip K. Dick's story Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep adapted into? Okay, so you guys are probably familiar with this one. I'm not going to give you my answers right away. I'll give you a few seconds to think of your answers. Pause if you need to, but I'm not going to put a ding, 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 ding. That would make this a very long video if I did that for every question. So I'm thinking Blade Runner. I'm pretty sure this one is Blade Runner. Let's get some points to kick us off. Blade Runner it is. I'm 2 for 2. I hope you guys are too. Let's check out question number 2. All right, question number 2. Which sci-fi author is credited with coining the term cyberspace? So, I think I know the answer to this one. This is a book that I read a while ago. It was a little hard to get into, but I actually reread it recently and still a little hard to get into, but I enjoyed it even more. Of course, the answer to this one is Neuromancer by William Gibson. Looks like I'm 4 for 4 so far, or 4 out of 4 possible points. Let's move on to question 3. Okay, question number 3. Which novel is constantly described as The Hunger Games on Mars? So I think I've read this one, and is it a fair description? Yeah, I'd say so, kind of. I think sometimes people might use this to imply that it's YA. Some people might be saying it's great because they love The Hunger Games. Either way, this one is Red Rising. So I've got 3 out of 3 questions, taking me up to 6 points. Hopefully I get all the easy ones right. I should, seeing as I am a sci-fi booktuber, but you never know. Sometimes the easy ones can trip you up. Well, let's see if that happens with question number 4. Name the most recent sci-fi novel to have won the Hugo. Now, I definitely should get this one, seeing as I did attend the Hugo Awards this year in Seattle at Worldcon, and I remember the title. The title of the book is The Tainted Cup, I'm pretty sure. Let's check out the answer. Let's see if I've got this one right. Okay, editing Jonathan might have to jump in there, as the answer listed was actually the most recent winner from 2024, which is actually what comes up when you type the question into Google, but I was pretty sure I got this one right. I was there when they gave out the award, and if you go to Wikipedia or anything like that, you can see that the winner in 2025 was The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. So there you go. We keep the streak alive. Let's move on to our next question. Okay, we have another Hugo Award related question. This time, which book trilogy won 3 back-to-back, I guess also to back, Hugo Awards? Okay, so I'm pretty sure I know what this is. I've read the first, but I haven't read the entire trilogy. I'm going to say this is the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, the first being the 5th season. It is, of course, the Broken Earth trilogy. So we go 5 for 5 so far on the easy questions. Let's move on to question 6. Okay. Author Becky Chambers was sending people a long way to where? All right, so I think I have read this book. It is part of a series. I've only read the first book in the series, but luckily this is the first book, and I do remember the name of it. It is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Small Angry Planet, I'm locking in as my answer. And fortunately, it is the correct one. I kind of like this book. Didn't like it enough to continue with the series, but if you're looking for something cozy, try out Wayfarers. All right, moving on to question 7. In our easy section, what number features prominently in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and in Major League Baseball? Okay, this is a fun one. It is I think it's fairly easy, although sometimes these book specifics can be a little tricky if you haven't read the book. Fortunately, this one has sort of permeated into pop culture. You might have heard that the meaning of life is the number 42. And the baseball reference, which I appreciate as well, the legend Jackie Robinson. Let's go in there for confirmation. And the quizmasters agree that not only is the meaning of life 42, it is also the answer to this trivia question. Okay, I think I'm, what's that, 7 for 7. Haven't dropped any points yet. Feeling pretty good. Hope you guys are feeling good at home as well. Okay, question 8. What is the title of the third book in Cixin Liu's Remembrance of Earth's Past? So, this is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Actually, if your eyesight's good, you might be able to see the answer over my shoulder, although I think the lights are kind of making it a little too bright to read. Death's End. Death's End is the third book. I love this series. If you like hard sci-fi, check it out. If you're more of a character-focused reader, might not be for you, but I love it. All right, moving on to question number 9. Which sci-fi authors are widely regarded as the big three of science fiction? So I guess over time this could change if the sci-fi community gets together and collectively decides to name different authors the big three, but throughout history, and I think as of today, the big three of science fiction are Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, and Robert Heinlein. It's interesting who you think would be fourth, though. Throw out some names for who you think if we turn that big three into a Mount Rushmore, who should it be? And just making sure we're in alignment here. Robert A. Heinlein, Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke. Whatever, you didn't have to put them in order. If you put them in a different order, you still get the 2 points. All right, and moving on to our 10th and final question for the easy section, we have on October 30th, 1938, an Orson Welles radio dramatization of Blank book titled Blank caused panic among some listeners. What is either the author's name or the title of the book? So we got a couple of different options here. This is kind of a crazy story. I don't know to what extent it's really true, like how much panic there actually was, but I do love the lore. I think it's a great story. Whether you've read the book or not, you may have heard of this story because it is quite famous in science fiction history. This is H.G. Wells and his book, The War of the Worlds. We're going to do split points. I can't imagine that you would have gotten one of those and not the other. But sometimes that happens. Sometimes there's a word on your brain, you can get the author, but you just can't quite get the name of the book as well. It is H.G. Wells and it is War of the Worlds. I hope you got both of those for the 2 points. So, quick tally. I'm 20 out of 20. I'm a little bit relieved. I am a sci-fi booktuber. I didn't want to let myself down in the easy section. I haven't done that. Let's see if I can keep it rolling with the medium questions as we turn it up a notch. With our next 10 questions, starting with the most prestigious Polish SFF award was named after which Polish author? So, I don't actually know this for sure. Actually, I don't really know it at all. I'm not familiar with the award, but I think we can logic our way there. The most famous Polish science fiction author is Stanislaw Lem. And if you're going to name a sci-fi award after a great, there is the Philip K. Dick Award, there's the Arthur C. Clarke Award, surely this Polish SFF award is named after Stanislaw Lem. Although I could be wrong. So this is probably the first time where I'm not super duper confident hitting the result. We've got one wrong. We've got our first question wrong. That's okay. 100% was always going to be a tough target. And hey, I'm learning something new. I like it. Apologies if I pronounce this incorrectly. Janusz A. Zajdel. Very interesting. I'm going to have to look them up. Read some of their books if they deserve to have an award named after them. I'm sure they're quite the talented author. So there you go. 0 for 1 in the medium difficulty section. Let's hope that doesn't continue. All right, question number 2. What date was Shelley's Frankenstein published? So I like this. This is a good time for that question. Good thematic October, Halloween, spookiness, and the film's coming out soon. So I'm very excited to watch Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, because I love the book. And there are actually, I guess, two dates here, which I think I would accept. There's the original, 1818, and then the revised, 1831. I think the Quizmaster is looking for the original. Let's see what they've gone with. 1818. Okay. That's the date I would have picked as the answer to the question, but if you happen to put in 1831, I'll accept that as well. Have your 3 points. All right. I feel a little bit better. I'm 1 for 2. I've got 3 points out of a possible 6 in the medium section. Let's see what we have next for our third medium difficulty question. What is the name of the fictional town where all the children were born with golden eyes? Okay. I don't know this one for sure. I don't think I've read this book, but from somewhere in the back of my brain, I feel like I've heard this book described, and I feel like I might have seen a book cover with kids with golden eyes. I think this is by John Wyndham. I've read The Day of the Triffids, but that's the only book I've read from him. I think this is the Midwich Cuckoos. So the fictional town, I'm going with Midwich. Although that sounds like a real town. That could be a real place. Doesn't that sound like a nice little country English town? And the answer is Midwich. Okay, I can breathe another sigh of relief. If you're able to get the answers to questions on books that you haven't read, you're picking up points there. You're picking up strokes against the field, to use a golf analogy. I think that's going to how you keep your score together. If just you've heard this and that, you've been around BookTube or other science fiction communities, keep the points rolling, even if you haven't read every single book. All right, moving on to question 4. Who won the most Hugo Awards with 11? Okay, I like this. This one's a little tricky because it's not just Hugo Award for Best Novel. There could be other Hugo Awards. And I think this is a little bit of a surprising answer. This isn't, I feel like if it was a bigger name, it might be more well known, might have been in the easy category. But I think this one could trip people up because I think the answer is Connie Willis. I own a book by Connie Willis, the Doomsday book, but I haven't read it yet. Let's find out the answer just to make sure Connie Willis is the answer. Okay, we're doing pretty good. We're back on track after a little stumble at the start of the medium category. Moving on to question 5. Which science fiction author is credited with founding Scientology? Okay, so I think I know the answer to this one, although I haven't read. I think it is the Battlefield Earth series, is the series written by this author, but this is somewhat well known within pop culture. I think the answer is L. Ron Hubbard. So let's double check that. And L. Ron Hubbard is the answer. Let's see if I can keep up the good work going through the medium section before it all inevitably goes wrong once we get to the hard questions. Okay, question 6 of the medium questions. Which is the first book by Kim Stanley Robinson? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We've run into a bit of trouble. Okay, so I've read one book by Kim Stanley Robinson, Red Mars, the first book in his Mars trilogy, and I liked aspects of it, but didn't click for me overall. So that's the only one I've read by KSR so far. I've heard of a couple of other titles, but I feel like they're more recent. I don't think Red Mars was his first book, but I'm just going to have to throw out a bit of a long shot guess and say Red Mars. But maybe I get lucky. The Wild Shore. Okay, The Wild Shore. Let me know if you've read this book, whether you liked it, whether I should give Kim Stanley Robinson another try, which I will, but whether this is maybe the one that I should do it with. Let's see if I can go on a bit of a run here. Question 7. Name the 1969 novel that is partly based on the author's experience during the bombing of Dresden. Okay, we're getting some points back here because this book was written by not just one of my favorite authors of all time, but my #1 author of all time, Kurt Vonnegut, with arguably his most famous work, Slaughterhouse-Five. We shall reveal the answer just to make sure. If I get a Vonnegut question wrong, I will not be happy. But there you go, Slaughterhouse-Five. That is, of course, the correct answer. Let's keep it going strong with question number 8 in this category. Which book is the story of aliens who use humans as horses? Wow. That's kind of a cool premise. Sort of horrifying. I don't want to be a horse for some alien. Things have not gone well for humanity if we end up in this situation. Okay, so I don't think I have read this book. It does sound a little familiar though, because I read a short story by an author that I liked, and so I decided to pick up one of their novels. And I'm going to lock in the answer of The Mount by Carol M. Schwiller. I may be misremembering the premise for that book, or it may just be vaguely similar. This is another one where I'm not feeling great, but maybe I've pulled one out of the hat here. Let's go! The Mount by Carol M. Schwiller. What a pull. You know what? I've been looking forward to reading that one, but now I'm even more excited to read it. I got good trivia memories associated with that book. That was huge. So I think I've only gotten 2 wrong so far. That was a big win. That one saved me for sure. All right, question number 9. What is the name of the book where the author created a fictional slang called Nadstat? I believe that should be Nadsat, but that's okay. If there is another book that has created a language called Nadstat, I guess that's the correct answer. Either way, I think you'll deserve the points. But I'm going to go with Nadsat. I believe this is a book that I own, special edition of, by Folio Society. A book that it was a while ago that I read it, but it was very impactful. This book is A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. There you go, a dystopian book. Getting a good range of sort of genres and things represented in this sci-fi trivia quiz. Modern, classic, dystopian, cyberpunk, space opera, all kinds of good stuff. And that takes us to question number 10, our final medium question before things start to get really tricky with our final hard difficulty questions. All right, question number 10. What Japanese author's magnum opus stars the little people? Okay, I don't think I know the answer to this one for sure, because I don't recall reading a book with characters or a society. I'm not sure what the little people necessarily refers to. Maybe some kind of aliens, that would be kind of cool. But from context clues, a famous Japanese author with a famous magnum opus, what I believe to be their magnum opus is 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. I have read one of their books, Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World, and I was a little bit mixed on that one. Wasn't really for me, but I'll have to try another Murakami book. If the answer even is Murakami, either way I need to read something else by him, but maybe I'll be reading a different Japanese author, depending on what the answer is. Haruki Murakami. So I'm pretty sure that is 1Q84 that is referring to, and we somewhat survived. I think we did fairly well. I think I got 8 out of 10 in the medium section. Pretty good, but there's 50 points to go. These 10 hard questions worth 5 points each. This is make or break. This is what will decide who takes home the high score and whether you beat me in my own trivia game. All right, let's kick things off with our first hard question. Which science fiction author made it his business to get the 1995 German novel, apologies for the pronunciation, Die Harte Picknupfer, translated to English? So this is a wild question. Fortunately for me, I think this question has been picked by a fan of the channel, because I think this is a book that I am a fan of. So I don't know what that means in German. I do not speak German, but I think just based on the fact that it was a 1995 German novel. I can think of one, and a science fiction author that is, you guys will know, that is quite famous, did get, I think, helped get this translated. I think this is The Carpet Makers by Andreas Eschbach, and the author that helped to get that translated was Orson Scott Card, the author of Ender's Game. So that's pretty hard. I think if you're a fan of this channel and you happen to have read The Carpet Makers, either based on my recommendation or if you just happen to have read it beforehand, you might have been able to get that question. But that's a pretty deep pull, if you ask me. Let's confirm. Imagine if I did all that rambling and then it wasn't The Carpet Makers. Okay. The book is The Carpet Makers, and the answer to that question is Orson Scott Card. If you got that one right, you definitely earned your 5 points because it was pretty difficult. And that book is awesome. Go read it. It's amazing. Okay, moving on to our second hard question. Hopefully, it's not as hard as that one. Most people call flowery prose purple. Which science fiction novel's prose can be aptly described as indigo? Wow, that's a fun question. It seems like a subjective question, but I'm sure this is a quote from something. Somebody else has referred to this author's prose as indigo, or they referred to it themselves. Or maybe that's a clue. Maybe they have a book with the word indigo in the title. Oh, this is a great question. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to it. But even though I'm probably going to get it wrong, I do appreciate our clever Words in Time quizmasters putting this question together for me. I'm rambling because I don't know the answer. I'm just going to guess Ursula K. Le Guin. Someone called her prose indigo. I'd be like, okay, I could see that. That makes sense to me. Ooh, okay. The answer is The Electric Forest by Tanith Lee. So I have read this one, which has irked me a little bit that I didn't get this question correct, even though I have read the book. Am I forgetting something? Is there in the book that alludes to the word indigo? Yeah, someone's going to have to explain why the prose in The Electric Forest is named or can be referred to as indigo. But I like the question. And if you had no idea why, don't worry. These are supposed to be hard. I didn't get it either. Dropping 5 points there. Let's see if I can get it back with the next one. Who created the cover art for Asimov's Foundation novels for the 1986 Del Rey paperbacks? Okay, this is a fun question. It was something a little bit different about the cover art. I feel like art is a big part of books, big part of science fiction history. This is a little bit tricky if you don't know specifically who made the art for that. I feel like I do. And if you don't know, you might be able to just guess based on a famous science fiction cover artist, and you might be able to pull it. I'm fairly sure this is Michael Whelan. Let me check. Let's pull up the answer. See if I've got a hard one correct. Michael Whelan is correct. One of the GOATs, one of the all-time greatest artists for science fiction, as well as fantasy and other things. Truly magnificent, and he did a great job with those Foundation paperbacks. Okay, I'm feeling good. Got 5 points back. Let's move on to question number 4 in the hard section. 20th Century Fox was sued by a science fiction author over similarities of the Alien film, 1979, to his work, but Fox settled out of court. Which author and which work of his was this over? So this is a cool piece of science fiction history. These are the kind of tidbits that you learn doing science fiction trivia, which I like. So I'm fairly sure I know the answer to this one. I came across this story maybe a year or two ago while doing some research for a video that I was making. Having said that, my mind just blanked on what the answer is. Uh-oh, that's not good. It is, okay, I think it came back to me. I believe the author is A.E. Van Vogt, and the name of the book is it The Adventures of the Space Beagle? I'm pretty sure it has Space Beagle in it. I'm pretty sure, but is it The Adventures of? I can't think of anything else. I'm gonna have to lock that in. I would like to mull that over for a while, but I think that makes I think that would make for bad content, so I'm just gonna have to lock in what came to mind first. Oh, then vote The Voyage of the Space Beagle. That's a heartbreaker. I'm truly unhappy with that. I'd like to make the argument for half points. I did get the author, and I got like half of the title right. But we're gonna say I got that one wrong. I'm gonna be a harsh. I'm gonna be a harsh critic and say I didn't quite get that one. If you were on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, although it's multiple choice, so I probably should have picked a different game show. Anyway, gosh, we were close with that one. I hope you got that one correct, because being as close as I was and not getting it, that was a bit of a gut punch. All right. Question number 5 out of the hard questions. Which famous SF author predicted the concept of geostationary satellites before they were actually invented? Okay, this is another kind of cool piece of history. These are the kind of trivia questions we love. It's interesting because what comes to mind, I don't think this author exactly predicted the concept. I think they actually helped create, sort of like come up with the science, like actually practical implications that helped it come to life. Anyway, I'm vamping. I think this is Arthur C. Clarke. Arthur C. Clarke, not just a good science fiction writer, but a good scientist. And we lock in another 5 points as the answer is Arthur C. Clarke. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good. I think I got 3 out of the first 5. If I could get 3 out of the last 5, I think that would be pretty solid. I think I would be happy if I could get 6 out of 10 for the hard questions. Here we go. Which 2 of Alistair Reynolds' stories were adapted for the Netflix series Love, Death, and Robots? Oh, this hurts because I'm such a big Alistair Reynolds fan, and I got an Alistair Reynolds question, but I haven't seen Love, Death, and Robots, and I haven't read that many of his short stories. Look behind me here. These are all Reynolds. Every single one of these fat, chunky, mostly black cover books, they're Reynolds books. And I don't think the answer's in any of them. Wow, okay. I was aware of this, and I feel like on Discord, I remember someone saying something about Beyond the Aquila Rift, but I don't know the other one. Oh, this is sickening. Can I barter with you guys? Can I get can I get half points for the Beagle question and half points if I get one of these? I'm fairly sure that's right, but I don't know the other one. I'm just gonna have to throw out a story. What this is like Galactic North, Diamond Days, Dogs, Turquoise Days. I don't know. I'm just gonna say Beyond the Aquila Rift and Turquoise Days. Is that even the right title? I don't know. Oh, Zima Blue and Beyond the Aquila Rift. I was so close. Guys, you're gonna have to put in the comments, do I deserve half marks here? I'm not gonna give him though. I'm not gonna give him though. Gosh, that was close. Hey, look, these are hard for a reason. We're not giving out points willy-nilly. We're making you earn them by getting both. You gotta go 2 for 2 on the answers. All right. Let's move along. Question, what is this? 7 in the hard section. We need to finish strong. How many novels did Kurt Vonnegut write and publish in his lifetime? We're back to Vonnegut, all right? we needed to go back to that well. We needed to tap into my favorite author of all time. And I would be very embarrassed if I got this one wrong. I shouldn't though, because I did a video where I ranked all of his novels. And there were 14 novels. So, let's see if I made a mistake in what was not just a Kurt Vonnegut video, but a bit of a love letter to Kurt Vonnegut's novels, because I do truly love them. Let's see if the quizmasters agree. 14. 14 is the answer. 5 points. We needed that. 3 to go. Let's see if we can finish on a hot streak. What are the names of the 2 sister worlds in Ursula K. Le Guin's The Dispossessed? Why did I choose to do this to myself? This is embarrassing. I read The Dispossessed just a couple of months ago. let me think. I think I might be able to pull this if I think about it. There might need to be a jump cut. One of the worlds is kind of an anarchist style world, and I think that's reflected in the name. It's like Anares. Is it? Does Anares sound right? I know you can't answer me. Anares sounds correct to me. All right, pull it together, Jonathan. There was Anares and something. It's a yin and yang. It was kind of similar to Anares. I was going to say Euros, but that doesn't. Ures? Anares and Ures. I. It sounds like right, but not right. I don't know. I think I've tanked. I think I've time tanked long enough on this one. I'm locking in Anares and however I said it last time. Urus. Anaris and Urus. Okay, I don't care if I've pronounced that wrongly. Dude, this game is getting stressful. Anaris and Urus or Urus. Okay. Geez, after kind of half getting some questions right, I would have been so tilted if I got another one wrong. I'm getting the points for that one. Another 5 points for me. 2 questions to go. Here we go. Robert Silverberg once believed the idea that a popular author was a woman was absurd. Which author was he referring to? Okay, this is a bit of a sort of an eccentric bit of sci-fi history. It sounds vaguely familiar. I feel like I might have read this. Was this in sort of in Dangerous Visions, the short story collection by Harlan Ellison? There's like little sort of preambles to the stories. Is that where I might have read this? Because this sounds kind of familiar. So either this author was a male, and for some reason there was a theory that they were female, but that seems unlikely. I think this is a female author, as a lot of female authors did back in the day. They wrote under a pen name. And so maybe there were rumors that the person's pen name was actually the pen name of a female author. And for whatever reason, Robert Silverberg thought that wasn't true. I'm trying to think, which female sci-fi authors do I know that had a pen name? And there's one that is coming to mind. It has an awesome book cover. I bought it when I was in Nashville. Up the Walls of the Worlds by James Tiptree. Yes, Up the Walls of the World by James Tiptree Jr. But the real name of the real author was a woman, Alice Sheldon. That's the only one that I can think of. That's a pretty good pull, if this is correct, but I could be way off. This could be about a different author entirely. And I'm not sure was she in Dangerous Visions? Where did I remember that story from? Maybe just, I don't know, Googling around Wikipedia or something. Let's pull the trigger on the answer. What is it? Let's go. James Tiptree Jr., Alice Sheldon. I really want to read that book, in part because it sounds great and I want to read something by Tiptree/Sheldon. But now I'm hyped. Now I got it right in the trivia game. I'm feeling good about myself. Uh, just a quick pulse check. This game's more stressful than I anticipated. All right, our final question. In which book by Isaac Asimov do two characters play 3D chess? Wow. I wonder if that's the origin of 3D chess. Like, was that a thing in sort of pop culture, in language, people referring to 3D chess? I mean, chess has existed for so long. I'm sure somebody came up with that phrase before Asimov did. But that is pretty cool. So I've read 7 Asimov books, but I don't think I've read this one. Unless I'm forgetting. Unless it was in an Asimov book that I read and I've forgotten. So I'm gonna have to pull. I'm gonna have to pull a name. I think I'm just gonna have to guess an Asimov book. For some reason, my mind's going to Pebble in the Sky. Is that even an Asimov book? Why am I thinking of that title? I can't even explain why that's coming to me. Like if this is the correct answer, this is going to seem really fishy because I've sort of, explained how I've gotten to my final answer and I've known the answer to most of the questions, but a couple of them I've kind of had to work out. This would be a really deep pull. This would be from the back of my brain, maybe reading like a Goodreads blurb in 2018, and for some reason it stuck there. I'm gonna pull up the answer here, and I'll be way off. And Jonathan, you're like, you were trying to preemptively explain your genius when you weren't even you got you. Oh, what? How did that happen? How did that happen? I'm genuinely baffled. Like, this is not a setup for content. I honestly must have pulled that from the deepest recesses of my brain or just got really, really lucky. Wow. You know what? I don't feel so bad about not getting those half mark questions anymore because that was pretty lucky, but also pretty cool. What a way to end the trivia game. The final, I can't even speak anymore. The final question, question number 30, the 10th question, I pulled out of nowhere to save my score. So I'll go back and check what it was. Off the top of my head, I think I got 2 medium questions wrong and 3 hard questions wrong, which would mean I dropped 21 points, 79. Oh, 80 would have been nice. Anyway, what so there you go. That is the bar. I'll double check, I'll add it up when I edit, but I'm going to put my score on the screen and that is the score to beat. If any of you guys can beat that score, I'll be super impressed and I'm going to pin the top score. Whoever has the high score, I'm going to pin your comment to the top of the comments in the video because you earned it. You presumably not only beat me, but everybody else in the comments. So that's pretty cool. You know science fiction. Well, that was really fun. Firstly, thank you to all the subscribers in Discord. You are really kind and generous people to give up your time to think of those questions and post them and share them so I could play with this game and so I could play this game and you guys could play along with me. There were a couple of easy questions to start, but then it got tricky rather quickly. I would say if you were able to get even just 20 points, you are a sci-fi reader. Congrats, well done to you. I think if you got over 50 points, you are very well versed in science fiction. And if you got over 80, you are the master. You are the sci-fi expert. Let me know what you scored, whether you enjoyed this type of video. Something a little bit new, a little bit different. Tried to have fun on the channel with the greatest genre of all time. Sci-fi is the best fi. Click the like video if you liked it, and if you really enjoyed it, consider subscribing to my Patreon memberships, where you can become one of my robots, androids, or cyborgs, like Nima and New Eden, Half Ogre, Zakawe, Samil, and the Quizmaster Colin. And you can find more sci-fi content over here.